Powerful people do not chase. They're chased. CEOs, investors, celebrities, the people who actually move the world. They wake up to 100 messages from people who want something from them. Their attention is the scarcest resource on the planet. And you, like everyone else, have been approaching them completely wrong. You've been selling, pitching, proving your value, explaining why they should care about you. Every single one of those moves pushes them further away. Because here's the thing nobody's telling you about powerful people. They don't respond to pursuit, they respond to absence. Robert Greene spent 25 years studying seducers, con artists, and charismatic leaders, not the motivational speaker version, the real ones. The people who bent kings, toppled empires, and rewired entire cultures through pure social magnetism. And he found a pattern. The ones who attracted the most power weren't the ones trying the hardest. They were the ones who understood a fundamental law of human psychology that's been deliberately hidden from you. The moment you want something from someone powerful, you've already lost. Because powerful people have spent their entire lives being wanted, being needed, being approached by armies of people just like you, all trying to get close, all angling for something. They've built psychological armor against it, but there's a backdoor, a way to bypass every defense they've constructed. A method so counterintuitive that most people never discover it even after decades of networking and social climbing. Greene calls it social seduction, and it's not what you think. This isn't about manipulation or tricks or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding how desire actually works in the human brain and using that knowledge to position yourself as the exception, as the person they pursue instead of the person pursuing them. I'm gonna walk you through Greene's 5 laws, the exact blueprint he reverse-engineered from history's most magnetic figures. The people who had emperors waiting for their letters, investors begging to fund them, and entire movements forming around their presence. And by the end of this, you're gonna see every failed networking attempt, every ignored message, every cold interaction with someone powerful for what it actually was. You trying to give them something they already have too much of: attention, validation, need, what they don't have, what they're actually starving for. That's the gap we're about to exploit. Let's start with the law that breaks everything you've been taught about networking. Law 1. Choose your victim carefully. That sounds dark, right? Like we're about to do something unethical. We're not. Greene's using the word victim the way a seducer does. Not someone you're harming, someone you're targeting with precision because random pursuit is just desperation with better shoes. Here's what most people do. They want access to powerful people, so they shotgun their approach. LinkedIn messages to 50 CEOs, cold emails to investors, DMs to influencers, spray and pray. And it never works because powerful people can smell lack of specificity from a mile away. When your message could have been sent to anyone, it gets the response it deserves. Nothing. Greene studied Cleopatra, not the Hollywood version. The actual political operator who seduced 2 of the most powerful men in Rome and almost changed the course of Western civilization. She didn't pursue every powerful Roman. She targeted Julius Caesar first, then Mark Antony. Why those 2 specifically? Because she'd done her homework. Caesar was intellectually vain. He prided himself on his writing, his strategic mind, his cultural sophistication. So Cleopatra didn't show up as just another beautiful woman trying to trade looks for influence. She showed up speaking perfect Latin, discussing philosophy, matching his intellect. She positioned herself as the only woman in the Mediterranean who could actually challenge him mentally. That's victim selection. You don't pursue powerful people because they're powerful. You pursue specific powerful people because you've identified a gap in their world that you uniquely fill. Let me make this practical. You want to connect with a successful entrepreneur. Everyone else is pitching them, asking for advice, trying to impress them with their hustle. You do the opposite. You study their interviews, their old blog posts, the things they used to care about before they got successful and had to perform success all the time. And you find the thing they've had to abandon. Maybe they used to paint. Maybe they loved obscure philosophy. Maybe they started their company because of a specific problem they experienced personally, but now they're so far removed from operations they've lost touch with that origin story. You don't mention your startup. You don't ask for a meeting. You don't pitch anything. You send them something related to that abandoned part of themselves. A book they mentioned loving 15 years ago. An article about the problem they originally set out to solve. No ask. No angle, just evidence that you see them as a person, not a resource, and watch what happens. They respond, not because you've impressed them, because you've reminded them of who they were before they became who everyone wants them to be. That's Law 1. Specificity isn't just about standing out. It's about targeting the psychological gap between who they are publicly and who they are privately. Because powerful people are lonely in a specific way. They're surrounded by people who only see their power, who only relate to their public persona, who want access to what they can provide. And underneath that, they're still human. Still carrying the same insecurities, the same nostalgias, the same hidden parts of themselves they can't express because their position requires a performance. You become valuable the moment you see past the performance. Not to exploit it, to acknowledge it. That's how you get noticed when everyone else is invisible. But noticing you is just step 1. Law 2 is where you actually create the pull. Law 2. Create a tempting fantasy. Here's where people mess up. They think the way to attract powerful people is to be impressive, to showcase achievements, to demonstrate value through credentials and track record. Wrong. Powerful people aren't looking for more impressive people. They're drowning in impressive people. Their entire network is high achievers competing for attention. What they're actually looking for, what they can't find anywhere, is escape. Greene studied this through the lens of seduction, but it applies to every form of social magnetism. The most attractive people aren't the most accomplished. They're the ones who offer a psychological vacation from the grind of maintaining power. Think about it. When you're powerful, your entire day is performance. Every conversation is transactional. Every relationship has an agenda. Every interaction requires you to be on, to be strategic, to protect your position. It's exhausting. So when someone shows up who doesn't need anything from you, who isn't trying to extract value, who actually makes you feel like you can drop the mask for 5 minutes, that person becomes addictive. Greene talks about Casanova. The legendary seducer had a trick that made women obsessed with him. He didn't talk about himself. He didn't try to impress them with his adventures or his connections. He asked them about their secret dreams, the things they wanted but couldn't admit publicly, the person they wished they could be, the life they fantasized about when nobody was watching. And then he treated them as if they were already that person, not in a fake way, in a way that gave them permission to inhabit that fantasy version of themselves when they were with him. That's the tempting fantasy. You're not selling them on you. You're offering them a version of themselves they can only access through you. Let's break this down for your actual life. You're trying to build a relationship with someone successful in your industry. Everyone else is asking them for introductions, advice, mentorship. You do something different. You notice they used to be creative before they became an executive. Maybe they wrote, maybe they designed, maybe they built things with their hands. And now they're in back-to-back meetings managing people who manage people. You don't ask them about their success. You ask them about the thing they gave up to become successful, not in a sad way, in a curious way. I saw your old design work from 2012. That project looked insane. Do you still think about making things, or has that just become impossible at this scale? You've just done something no one else does. You've acknowledged the cost of their success instead of just celebrating the success itself. And suddenly, they're talking to you differently. Not as a gatekeeper being approached, as a person being seen. That's the fantasy. not an escape from their life, an escape from the performance of their life. You become the space where they can be nostalgic, vulnerable, real, and people chase what makes them feel real. But here's the thing. You can't maintain that pull if you're always available, which brings us to Law 3. Law 3. Master the art of strategic absence. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because everything you've been taught about networking says stay visible, follow up, be persistent, stay top of mind. And for normal people competing with normal people, that might work. But with powerful people, that strategy makes you invisible through omnipresence. Greene studied this through the withdrawal technique, how seducers would get close, create connection, then vanish right when the other person expected more contact. Not ghosting, strategic retreat, and the psychological effect is devastating. When you're always available, you train people that your attention is cheap, that you'll always be there, that they don't need to prioritize you because you've made it clear you're prioritizing them. But when you disappear after creating connection, something shifts. Their brain starts asking questions. Where did they go? Did I do something wrong? Why aren't they pursuing me like everyone else does? And those questions create the pull, because powerful people are used to being the ones who withdraw. They're used to having control over the pacing of relationships. They respond when they want. They engage when it's convenient. When you flip that script, when you're the one who's suddenly hard to reach, you've created scarcity where they expected availability. And humans chase scarcity. Let me show you how this actually works. You've had a great first conversation with someone powerful, good energy, real connection. They seem interested. Your instinct is to follow up immediately. Send a thank you email, connect on LinkedIn. Maybe suggest a follow-up meeting while the momentum is hot. Don't. Let it sit for a week, maybe 2. This goes against every networking instinct you have. You're worried they'll forget about you, that someone else will get the spot you just earned, that the window will close. But here's what's actually happening in their head. They had a good conversation with you, expected the typical follow-up, the pitch, the ask, the attempt to convert that interaction into something transactional, and it didn't come. So now you're interesting, because you're the person who got close and didn't immediately try to extract value, who created connection and didn't seem desperate to maintain it. You're an anomaly, and anomalies get attention. When you finally do reach back out, and you will, it's not about the meeting you had. It's about something new. Something they'd be interested in that has nothing to do with what you want from them. Saw this piece on X, thought it connected to what you were saying about why anyway, hope you're good. No ask, no agenda, just value with no strings attached. And that absence followed by unexpected value. That's the pattern that makes people start thinking about you when you're not there, which is the entire game. You don't want to be the person they respond to when you message them. You want to be the person they think about messaging first, and you only get there by being willing to disappear. But absence alone isn't enough. You need Law 4 to complete the pull. Law 4. Cultivate an air of mystery. Powerful people are surrounded by people who overshare. Networkers who explain their entire life story in the first conversation. Entrepreneurs who pitch for 20 minutes without taking a breath. Social climbers who name drop and credential flex to prove they belong in the room. It's all noise. Because here's what Greene figured out by studying everyone from Marlene Dietrich to Andy Warhol. Mystery is magnetic. Transparency is repellent. Not because honesty is bad. Because when you reveal everything about yourself up front, you've answered all the questions before they can be asked. And questions create desire. Think about the last time you were obsessed with figuring someone out. They weren't an open book. They were selective about what they revealed. They had layers, contradictions, things that didn't quite add up in ways that made you want to understand them more. That's not manipulation. That's understanding how curiosity works. When you meet someone powerful, your instinct is to establish credibility, to explain who you are, what you do, why you matter. You're trying to close the information gap. but closing that gap too fast kills the intrigue. Greene would tell you to do the opposite, reveal selectively. Answer questions with just enough detail to be interesting but not enough to be complete. They ask what you do. Everyone else gives their elevator pitch. You say something like, "I'm figuring out how to solve X without doing Y still early, but it's consuming me right now." You've given them a glimpse, not the whole picture. They know you're working on something. They know it matters to you, but they don't know the details. And that gap, that's where their curiosity lives. Let me give you a real example. There's a story about Lou Reed, the musician, famously difficult, famously private. He'd be at parties with industry people, powerful executives, famous artists. Everyone's networking, talking about their projects, trying to seem important. Lou would barely speak. And when he did, it was cryptic, half answers, weird tangents, stories that went nowhere. People were obsessed with him, not because of what he said, because of what he didn't say. They'd leave conversations with him feeling like they almost understood him, but not quite. Like there was something just beneath the surface they couldn't access. And that feeling made them want more time with him. That's the air of mystery. It's not about being aloof or playing games. It's about understanding that revealed value decreases over time, but mysterious value compounds. When powerful people can't quite figure you out, they keep you in their orbit trying to solve the puzzle. And while they're trying to solve it, you're building a relationship. Here's how you implement this. Next time you're in a conversation with someone powerful and they ask about you, resist the urge to perform your resume. Instead, talk about what you're obsessed with right now. Not your job, not your credentials, the thing that's genuinely consuming your attention. Maybe it's a weird problem you can't solve. Maybe it's a question you're researching. Maybe it's a project that doesn't fit into any normal category. Be specific enough that they can engage with it, but vague enough that they have to ask follow-up questions to understand it. You're creating conversational hooks, places where they have to lean in to keep up. And every time they lean in, every time they ask another question to understand you better, they're investing attention. And attention investment creates psychological ownership. They start feeling like they're discovering you rather than you presenting yourself. And people value what they discover infinitely more than what they're told. But mystery without substance is just performance. You need Law 5 to make it real. Law 5. Prove your worth indirectly. Here's the final piece most people never figure out. You can't tell powerful people you're valuable. The moment you have to say it, you've undermined it. Because truly valuable people don't need to advertise. Their value is obvious through what others say about them, through the results they produce, through the problems they solve without fanfare. Greene studied this through what he calls social proof at a distance. The most seductive people in history didn't brag about their conquests. Other people bragged about them. They didn't list their achievements. Their achievements were referenced by others in conversation. They built reputations that preceded them. And here's the trick. You can engineer this even if you're not famous yet. It's not about being impressive. It's about creating situations where your value becomes apparent without you having to claim it. Let me show you how. You're in a group setting, coffee with several people, a small networking event, a casual dinner. Someone powerful is there. Everyone's trying to impress them directly, mentioning their companies, dropping names, angling for one-on-one attention. You do something different. You don't try to impress the powerful person. You help someone else in the group solve a problem they mentioned. Maybe it's an introduction you can make. Maybe it's insight into something they're struggling with. Maybe it's just asking the right question that helps them think through something differently. You're not performing for the powerful person. You're being genuinely useful to someone else while the powerful person watches. And here's what happens. They see you operate. They see how you think. They see the value you provide without needing credit for it. That's infinitely more convincing than anything you could say about yourself, because they're not hearing your claims. They're witnessing your behavior. Greene talks about this as the rake's progress. How seducers would enter social circles and seduce everyone except their actual target. They'd charm the target's friends, help the target's colleagues, become beloved by the entire ecosystem. And the target would notice, would see everyone else gravitating toward this person, would start wondering why they weren't getting that attention themselves, and curiosity turns into desire. In your world, this means building relationships with people adjacent to the powerful person you're actually trying to reach. You help their employees. You provide value to their peers. You become known in their network as someone who's genuinely useful without being transactional about it. And when your name comes up in their world, it comes up positively, from multiple sources, without you being the one bringing it up. That's social proof at a distance. And it's more powerful than any pitch you could ever make because it's not you claiming value. It's their trusted network confirming it. But here's where this gets really practical. Most people think they need to wait until they're successful to use these laws. They think they need credentials, resources, or status first. That's backwards. These laws are how you build that status, how you go from unknown to magnetic, how you become the person powerful people want access to instead of the person begging for access. You start where you are. You pick one powerful person who has a specific gap you can fill, not because you're impressive, because you're attentive. You create a fantasy for them, not a lie, a space where they can be more themselves than their position usually allows. You show up, create connection, then disappear before they expect you to. You remain slightly mysterious, answering questions without fully revealing yourself, making them curious instead of satisfied. And you prove your value indirectly by being useful to their world without needing their validation. Do this consistently and something shifts. You stop chasing. They start reaching out. Your name comes up in conversations you're not part of. Opportunities start finding you instead of you hunting for them, not because you've become someone different, because you've learned to position yourself as rare. And rarity is the only thing powerful people can't buy or demand. They have access to everything except what's scarce. And you've made yourself scarce, not by hiding, by understanding that the moment you're chasing, you've lost the game. The game Greene spent decades mapping isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding a fundamental truth about human psychology. We don't want what wants us. We want what seems just out of reach. Powerful people especially, because they're used to getting what they want. So the person they can't quite have, can't quite predict, can't quite control. That person becomes the only person they're actually interested in. You've been trying to be chosen, to be impressive enough that powerful people pick you out of the crowd. But that's not how it works. Being chosen is the participation trophy. It means you were good enough to be selected from a pool of options. Being pursued is different. Being pursued means you've become the option, the one they're trying to figure out how to access. And Greene's 5 laws are the blueprint for that transformation. Choose your victim carefully means stop mass networking and start precision targeting based on psychological gaps you can uniquely fill. Create a tempting fantasy means offer them an escape from performing power, not another person impressed by their power. Master strategic absence means disappear right when they expect you to pursue harder, creating scarcity where they assumed availability. Cultivate an air of mystery means reveal yourself in layers, making them work to understand you instead of explaining yourself up front. Prove your worth indirectly means build reputation through action in their ecosystem, not through claims to their face. These aren't tricks. They're not manipulation. They're the operating system of human desire that everyone intuitively responds to, but few consciously understand. And the difference between intuitive and conscious is everything. Because once you see the mechanism, you can run it deliberately. You can engineer the conditions that make powerful people curious about you instead of hoping they notice you exist. You stop being the person writing cold emails that never get responses. You become the person whose emails get opened immediately because your name triggers curiosity, not obligation. You stop being the person asking for meetings. You become the person whose calendar fills up with requests from people trying to get time with you. You stop performing value. You become valuable through scarcity, mystery, and the social proof that comes from being genuinely useful to the right people in the right ways. That's the shift. And it's available right now. Not when you're more successful, not when you have better credentials, not when you're more impressive. Right now, with the relationships you have and the access you currently possess. Because Greene's laws aren't about resources. They're about positioning. And positioning is free. It just requires you to stop doing what everyone else is doing and start thinking like someone powerful people actually want to pursue. So here's what happens next. You've got someone in mind, someone powerful you've been trying to reach. Maybe it's been going nowhere. Maybe you haven't even tried yet because you assumed you weren't ready. You're ready, but you're gonna approach it differently now. You're not gonna pitch. You're not gonna impress. You're not gonna explain why they should care about you. You're gonna study them, find the gap, the abandoned part of themselves, the thing they can't express in their powerful position, and you're gonna acknowledge it, not to extract value, just to see them. Then you're gonna disappear. Create that strategic absence. Let them wonder why you're not following up like everyone else does. And when you reemerge, it won't be to ask for anything. It'll be to provide something small, something that shows you were thinking about them without needing their attention. You're planting seeds, building intrigue, positioning yourself as the person who operates differently than everyone else in their orbit. And over time, not overnight but consistently over time, they'll start reaching out, asking about you, wondering what you're up to, wanting more access than you're giving. That's when you know it's working, when they're the ones initiating, when they're the ones trying to figure you out. And at that point, you're not networking anymore. You're being pursued, which is where power actually lives, not in the pitch, not in the ask. In being the person they want access to more than you want access to them. That's Greene's entire game distilled. Stop chasing. Start positioning. Make them come to you. And if you want to go deeper on how to actually have conversations with powerful people once you've got their attention, how to turn that initial curiosity into lasting influence without revealing too much too fast, I've got something that breaks down the exact conversational frameworks the most magnetic people in history used. But that's a different mechanism, a different level. For now, you've got the blueprint. The 5 laws that separate people who beg for access from people who have access chasing them. What you do with it is up to you, but you can't unsee it now. You can't go back to mass networking and hoping someone notices. You've seen how the game actually works, how desire operates, how powerful people think about the people they pursue versus the people pursuing them. And that knowledge changes everything, if you're ready to use it.